This just got real for Cowboys Nation, and if you are not paying attention right now, you are going to miss everything that is about to unfold with George Pickens because the franchise tag window officially opened, and this situation is way more complicated than most people realize. So before we break it all down, hit that subscribe button right now because we cover Cowboys news the second it drops, and trust me, you do not want to be the last one to find out what happens next with this roster. All right, let me tell you exactly where things stand and why the next few weeks and months are going to determine whether this Pickens experiment becomes a long-term success or another Cowboys disaster. The tag is coming. Everybody knows it. The Cowboys are absolutely going to place the franchise tag on George Pickens, and that part is not even a question anymore. But here is what nobody is talking about. The tag itself is not the story. What happens after the tag gets applied is where this whole thing gets interesting and potentially messy. See, most fans are focused on March 3rd because that is the deadline to formally apply the franchise tag. But the real deadline that matters is July 15th. That is when an extension has to be finalized with a tagged player, or you are looking at a situation where Pickens plays the entire season on the tag, and things could get ugly between both sides. And if you have followed this organization for any length of time, you already know what the Cowboys tend to do in these situations. They drag it out. They wait until the last possible second. They let negotiations linger way longer than they should. Just look at the history, and it tells you everything you need to know about how this franchise operates. Dak Prescott got tagged twice before Dallas finally extended him. Tank Lawrence, same exact story with 2 tags before they got a deal done in April of his second tagged year. Tony Pollard never got close to an extension and walked in free agency. Dalton Schultz, same thing. The Cowboys tagged him and then let him leave the following offseason without ever seriously negotiating a long-term contract. So when people ask me if this time will be different, I want to say yes, but the track record says otherwise, and that should concern every single Cowboys fan watching this right now. Now, let me break down the financials because this is where the real conversation starts. The franchise tag number for wide receivers is projected somewhere between $28 million and just under $29 million, depending on which salary cap website you reference. The slight differences come from how each site calculates certain roster moves and salary figures across the league, but regardless, we are talking about a massive one-year commitment just to retain Pickens for the upcoming season. And here is the thing. George Pickens is not going to want to play on the tag. His agency is Athletes First, which is one of the most powerful representation firms in professional football. They negotiate huge deals for elite players, and they are absolutely going to push the Cowboys hard for an extension that reflects what Pickens is actually worth on the open market. So what does that extension need to look like? Let me paint the picture because this is where it gets fascinating. The floor for any negotiation has to start with what 2 years of the franchise tag would cost. You take this year's tag number and then add 120% of that figure for the following year, and you land somewhere around $62 to $63 million in guaranteed money as a baseline. That is the absolute minimum Pickens and his camp should accept because theoretically he could just play on the tag for 2 consecutive years and earn that money anyway without committing long term. The average per year salary at minimum would sit around $30.8 million, which already places him among the highest paid receivers in the NFL. But here is where negotiation strategy really comes into play. The contract that matters most in this discussion is not Justin Jefferson's massive deal at the top of the market. It is not even CeeDee Lamb's extension with Dallas. The contract George Pickens is going to point to is DK Metcalf's deal with Seattle. Metcalf signed an extension worth just under $33 million per year with around $80 million in total guarantees. And if I am Pickens or his agent, I am walking into that negotiation room asking one very simple question. Why on earth would I accept less money than what DK Metcalf received? Think about it from his perspective. Pickens got traded away by Pittsburgh. He has a chip on his shoulder. He wants to prove the Steelers made a colossal mistake by moving on from him. The only way to truly do that is to secure a bigger contract than a comparable receiver at his position, and Metcalf is that comparison. Similar talent level, similar production, similar age and trajectory. There is absolutely no logical reason for Pickens to sign for less than Metcalf, and his agency knows that better than anyone. So here is what I believe a realistic Pickens extension looks like. 4 years, $134 million total. That breaks down to $33.5 million per year, which narrowly beats Metcalf's average and establishes Pickens among the elite tier of receivers financially. The fully guaranteed money at signing would need to land above what 2 franchise tags would pay out, somewhere in the range of $65 to $70 million. Then the total guaranteed figure, including rolling guarantees that vest over time, would push toward $85 million or even higher. This structure keeps Pickens in line with the top 5 highest paid paid receivers in football while providing the long-term security he rightfully deserves after the chaos of his Pittsburgh departure. Now, would I do that deal if I am running the Cowboys front office? Honestly, yes, and let me explain why. George Pickens might genuinely be worth more to Dallas than he is to any other franchise in the NFL. I know that sounds crazy, but think about it for a minute. The Cowboys traded for him. They brought him into their building. They watched him practice every single day. They observed how he interacted with teammates and coaches. They saw everything up close and personal. And after all of that evaluation, they clearly decided that whatever issues existed in Pittsburgh were not going to be problems in Dallas. That level of comfort and familiarity matters enormously. Other teams, considering Pickens, only see the headlines and the drama from the outside. The Cowboys have seen the complete picture, and they liked what they saw enough to pull the trigger on that trade. That inside knowledge gives Dallas an advantage when it comes to valuing this player accurately. Now, I have to address the trade rumors because they keep circulating, and I know some of you are wondering if the Cowboys might flip Pickens before the season even starts. According to league insiders and recent reports, some people in media circles have floated the idea that Dallas could move Pickens for draft capital. One report suggested his trade value might only be a second-round pick or potentially even just a day 3 selection. And look, if that is genuinely his market value right now, I am absolutely not making that trade. The Cowboys already won the initial deal by sending out a future third-round pick and moving up roughly 30 spots to acquire him from Pittsburgh. That was a fantastic return for the Steelers, but an even better acquisition for Dallas. Trading Pickens now for similar or lesser compensation when you have already witnessed what he can do for your offense makes zero sense to me. I have seen some analysts compare this situation to the A.J. Brown trade from a few years ago. Philadelphia surrendered a first-round pick and a third-rounder to acquire Brown and then extended him almost immediately after the deal was finalized. If Dallas were seriously entertaining offers for Pickens, that is the type of package I would demand, a first-rounder plus additional compensation. But based on all the reporting we have seen, that value simply is not materializing right now, and that tells me the Cowboys are much better off keeping Pickens and paying him what he deserves. Now, let me address the elephant in the room because I know some of you are worried about the off-field concerns and the maturity questions that followed Pickens from Pittsburgh. Recent reports have mentioned that Pickens was fined during his time with the Cowboys and that he showed up late to certain team functions. And I need to be very clear about what was actually reported versus how social media completely twisted the story. One respected reporter stated that multiple sources confirmed Pickens was fined during the season. Now, here is the important distinction that everyone online seemed to miss. That does not mean he was fined multiple times. It means multiple sources independently confirmed that he received a fine. Could it have been multiple fines? Sure, possibly. But it could also have been just one single fine that multiple people were aware of. The aggregators on social media ran with the story like Pickens was getting fined every single week and causing constant problems, and that is simply not what the reporting said. This is why media literacy matters and why you have to actually read beyond the headlines. We already knew about one specific incident because it became public knowledge. Pickens missed the team bus in Las Vegas before the Raiders game and got benched for a drive as discipline. That happened. The coaching staff addressed it. The team moved forward. Has Pickens been late to other meetings or team events? Probably. Is he going to be the guy who shows up 15 minutes early to every single function with a notebook and a perfect attitude? Probably not. But here is the reality of professional sports that some fans do not want to accept. The rules are not the same for everybody. Star players receive more leeway than backup players. That is simply how every locker room in every professional sport operates. The question teams always have to answer is whether the talent outweighs the headaches. For Pittsburgh, that balance eventually tipped to the point where they wanted out of the relationship. For Dallas, at least, based on everything we have seen so far, the talent has been worth whatever minor issues have surfaced. And let me be extremely clear about something else that matters here. This is not some coordinated smear campaign being orchestrated by the Cowboys front office to tank Pickens' value before extension negotiations. Multiple respected reporters have gone out of their way to emphasize that Dallas is not the source leaking negative stories about Pickens. The organization wants this situation to work. They are not trying to create unnecessary drama or damage his market value before sitting down at the negotiating table. The stories that emerge are simply the reality of who George Pickens is as a person. He is not perfect. He has maturity areas that need continued development. But he is also an elite playmaking talent who can take over football games in ways very few receivers in the NFL can match. And that is exactly what the Cowboys offense desperately needs. So where does this entire situation leave us heading into the crucial next few months? The franchise tag is definitely getting applied. That outcome is essentially guaranteed at this point. The real drama and the real storyline begins after that tag becomes official and extension negotiations commence in earnest. If history provides any reliable guide, the Cowboys are going to drag this process out significantly longer than necessary, and every single one of us will be stressed about the situation until July arrives. But I genuinely believe there are reasons to think this particular situation might unfold differently than past franchise tag disasters. Pickens fills an absolutely massive need for this offense. The Cowboys have demonstrated repeatedly that they are comfortable with his personality and his approach, and his agency is motivated to secure a deal that provides long-term financial security after everything that transpired in Pittsburgh. My prediction is that we see an extension finalized sometime between the conclusion of free agency and early summer. The Cowboys need clarity on their salary cap situation, and Pickens wants the guaranteed money and security that comes with a multi-year commitment. Both sides have strong incentives to reach an agreement rather than letting this drag out until the July deadline, or worse, into a situation where Pickens plays the entire year on the tag with growing resentment. Now, I want to hear from you, Cowboys Nation, because your perspective matters on this one. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that Dallas handles this situation correctly and gets a long-term deal done? Are you worried the front office is going to repeat the same mistakes they have made with other franchise tag situations in the past? Or do you genuinely believe this organization has learned from those failures and will actually negotiate an extension within a reasonable time frame? Drop your number in the comments section right now and explain your reasoning, because I want to know where the fan base stands on this. Also, tell me what contract you would offer George Pickens if you were making the decisions. Would you go with the 4-year, $134 million structure I proposed? Or would you approach it completely differently? Maybe you think he deserves more. Maybe you think Dallas should play hardball and offer less. Whatever your position, I genuinely want to hear it, because this is going to be the biggest storyline of the Cowboys offseason, and the outcome affects everything else this team does moving forward. And one more thing before I let you go. If you watched this entire breakdown, you clearly care about Cowboys content and staying informed on every development with this roster. So if you have not subscribed yet, just take 1 second right now and hit that button. We cover every single Cowboys update immediately when news breaks, and I promise you do not want to be the last person to find out what happens next in the Pickens saga. This story is only getting started, and the next few months are going to be absolutely wild. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me if you think the Cowboys get this done or if you think they mess it up like usual. I appreciate you watching, and I will catch you in the next one.